Mark, do you have the latest figures on how our social media campaigns are doing?
Right up here, Eric. Right here.
Okay, let's start with the bottom line. How much revenue have we generated through social media?
That's easy. $500 billion.
What? That's impossible. That would make us like the highest earning company in history. Better recheck those figures. So, what about new email subscribers?
Easy. 500 billion.
Wow. Okay. At the end of the video, I'm going to ask you exactly what it is you think you're measuring. And in the meantime, many think it's impossible to measure any ROI from social media. But you can. Here's why. All right, let's dive right in. How can you measure ROI for social media?
First, let's define what we mean by ROI. Obviously it stands for return on investment, but a lot hangs on what you mean by the two nouns in that phrase. Now, what is the investment you're making and what return are you expecting? Since ROI came out of the financial world, it's typical to assume that both the investment and return are in dollars and cents, but there are other kinds of significant investments and returns you can measure.
So, how do you know what investment and the expected return are?
Well, that depends on your business goals for social media, which is always the place you should start. Are you trying to drive sales? Then the traditional dollars and cents are what you should measure. But there are other legitimate goals, such as brand awareness or sentiment or brand mentions or audiences, and others, all of which can be driven by social media as well.
So, let's start with the traditional monetary measurement of ROI. Can that be driven by social media, and what are you measuring exactly?
Well, the short answer is yes, it can, but only for some types of businesses. Now, if you're selling a commodity product and competing mostly on the basis of price and something with a relatively short buying cycle,
meaning people see the product or offer and tend to either buy it right then or not.
Right. So in that case, it's pretty easy to measure actual sales generated from a social media campaign. Of course, as with any of these measurements, they'll only be accurate if you set up correct goals in your analytics and if you carefully tag the URLs in your social posts so you know which actually drove a sale. Now, at a more advanced level, you should also be measuring things like lifetime value of a customer.
So does revenue-based ROI only work for those short buying cycle situations?
Oh, no, it is possible to do some measurement of the situations where it might take many touches and perhaps through different mediums before someone buys, but the attribution gets murkier. The truth is that no analytics setup is going to track and correctly attribute every sale. So in these cases, it's more important to look at trends. Is the average sale per campaign going up or down?
So let's move on to those other non-revenue-based ROI investments then.
Okay, sure. With these, it becomes even more critical to have a clear idea of what your goal is. Now, for example, if your goal is brand awareness, what does that look like on social? Deeper reach, more engagement with your posts, more shares of your content? You need to determine what matters to you and then measure that.
All right, so that covers the return side of ROI. But what is the investment for things like brand awareness or audience building campaigns?
Now, if we're using paid social campaigns, the ad spend is an obvious part of that. But for any campaign, paid or organic, you should be keeping track of the time your staff spends creating and promoting the social content. The value of their time becomes the primary investment factor. And before we go, I want to emphasize again the importance of learning how to tag your campaign links using consistent tags and setting up correct goals in your analytics. Now we have Here's Why videos covering all of that, and we'll link them in the blog post for this episode. So
thanks, Mark.
You're welcome, Eric.
Mark, earlier you claimed our social media campaigns had brought in $500 billion and 500 billion new email subscribers. Are you sure you're measuring true ROI?
Absolutely, Eric. ROI.
Wait a minute. What do you think ROI stands for?
Oh, that's easy. Really overinflated metrics, right?